So, not all traits follow this simple dominant recessive relationship. We're going to have various types of inheritance where they don't follow these same rules. So, we see that obviously there are going to be genes on the same chromosome, and typically they're going to be inherited together. Now, they could separate through the process of crossing over, but usually, if these genes are right next to each other, they're going to get inherited together. So we have individuals with red hair and freckles, and typically individuals with red hair do have freckles. And so these are what we call linked genes. And so these are genes on the same chromosome, sometimes right next to each other on that chromosome. So they tend to be inherited together. And so this is different from the Mendel's experiment where the color of the seed and the shape of the seed were inherited separately. These ones are all on the same chromosome. Okay? And so we see that even when we get crossing over, these are going to stick together. And then we inherit these genes that are together, they're linked. And so they tend to both be expressed in these individuals. We also have sex linked inheritance. So this is a type of linked gene specifically on sex chromosomes. So we have 22 pairs of autosomal chromosomes, and these are basically anything that are on our sex chromosomes. Most of our genes are on our autosomal chromosomes. But then we also have sex chromosomes. So females, sex XX, sex chromosomes, male sex chromosomes, the XY. And we can see here there's a pretty significant difference between the X chromosome and the Y chromosome. X is much larger. It has a lot more genes on it because the Y chromosome is just itty bitty. Okay, and this leads to interesting things in inheritance, typically for males. Okay, so genes that are on the X chromosome that aren't found on the Y chromosome are called sex-linked genes. And so what we see here is that in males, whatever they inherit from mom, that's their phenotype because there's no other allele to potentially cover it up. So we see that things like color vision, blood clotting, the disease hemophilia, various muscle protein structures, and things like this are on the X chromosome. And the X chromosome comes from mom. So whatever sons get from mom on the X chromosome, that's what they express. There's nothing they can do about it. But females get an X from mom and an X from dad. And so they will have two alleles there that could potentially cover one another up if there's a dominant recessive relationship. Okay. Again, genes on the male X chromosome fully expressed because they've only got the one. So unfortunately, that means with various things like the blood clotting disorder and color vision, if they get that from mom, they've got that disorder. Okay. Jumping into a couple other examples that we have of non-dominant recessive relationships, we have incomplete dominance and codominance. So here in incomplete dominance, we have a different phenotype for individuals that are heterozygous. Okay, so our example here are snapdragons, a type of flower. So we've got a red snapdragon and a white snapdragon. So we mix these two together and we breed them, and they form all pink flowers. So here, when we mix individuals that have incomplete dominant trait, those two phenotypes mix together. Red and white make pink. And so this is incomplete dominance. And then you can mix these two together, and then you get some red, some white, and some pink. So that's our incomplete dominance, where the phenotype of heterozygotes is a mixture between our other phenotypes. With codominance, neither or they are both dominant, so both of these traits get expressed. So here in this specific type of flower, we take a red tulip and a white tulip, we mix them together, and then the offspring are both red and white. We see expression of both traits in individuals that are heterozygous. Now, this is just a funny example, but we've got horizontal stripes, vertical stripes, and their child has both horizontal and vertical stripes, right? Both traits are expressed from the parents. Okay. Looking at codominance, blood type is an excellent example. Okay, and we find that A and B are codominant to each other. O is recessive. And so we've got these three possible alleles. Well, so far we've only talked about traits with two alleles. Okay, and so this is called multiple allelism, where you have more than two versions of a gene. Okay, and this is not uncommon. Now, it is important to note that each person still only has two alleles, right? We still only get two chromosomes, so we've got two alleles. It's just that there's more possibilities in the gene pool itself. Okay, and so we look at blood type, and so we've got a phenotype of antigen A on the red blood cells, antigen B, blood type O doesn't have any antigens, and then AB has both antigens. So we've got codominance here, where if we have the A allele and the B allele, both of those alleles are expressed. Okay, but then we've got that third allele, this O, where if we've got two O's, we don't see either antigen. Now, again, it's important to note that O is recessive to both A and B. Okay, again, A and B alleles both completely dominant to O. A and B alleles are codominant to each other. We do some examples in the genetics practice video that I made of blood typing. So there are four different phenotypes that you can have for blood type. You can be A, B, AB, or O, depending on what alleles you inherit. Okay? And so here we see all the possibilities to be type A. You can be homozygous for A, or you can be heterozygous AO. B, you can be homozygous for B or heterozygous BO. To be AB, you have to have the A allele and the B allele. To be type O, you have to have that homozygous recessive O alleles. Okay. Maybe you've all heard of the Maury Show. He goes in and he says, in the case of 3-year-old this baby, you are not the father, you are the father, and they make a big show of it. And so looking at these scenarios, mom is type O, baby is type O, and the guy is type B. Is it possible that he's the father? Absolutely, right? He could be BO and have passed down an O allele to his baby. Mom passed down an O allele to the baby. It's possible he's the father. This doesn't necessarily tell us that he is the father, though. It's just possible that he is. Mom is type O, baby is type A, dad is type O. Is it possible that he's the father in this scenario? No, because dad can only pass on an O. Mom can only pass on an O. Baby had to get the A allele from somewhere. That man is not the father. Here, type scenario 3, mom is heterozygous type A, so she's got AO. Dad is homozygous type B. What are the possible blood types in the offspring of this couple? So you could do a Punnett square and figure this out, where mom is AO, dad is BB. But basically, we see that we could have offspring that are AB or type B. And those are really our only options in this scenario. Okay. Looking at polygenic traits. So far, we've only looked at traits that are influenced by a single gene. But with polygenic traits, we have multiple genes coding for the same trait. So what we typically see in these types of traits is it's not one expression or the other, is we get these varying degrees of this expression. Okay? And so we'll start talking about these polygenic traits and some examples in this next video.